Hi, I'm Robert from Gold Point Props. For this video, I'll be showing you how I made the King Leonidas' helmet from the movie 300. I first started with my hand-drawn pattern and marked out the faceplate on 18 gauge sheet metal. Using tin snips, I cut out both sides of the faceplate. Using the roughness of the cement brick, I added a texture to the metal. I'm now using a pointed hammer to add pitting around the edges. Here I'm feeding it through the roller to give it the curve I needed. Then I used a hammer and anvil to flare the peak. Now that I have both sides shaped and formed, I welded the two halves together. After welding it, I ground the weld smooth, but being careful not to remove all imperfections so it can match the texture I did earlier. Using all the previous processes shown, I formed the back of the helmet. Here I'm marking out both sides of the dome piece. Then I use a stump with a slight dish in it to hammer out the pieces. Normally I would use a English wheel to smooth out the hammer marks, but this helmet has more of a rough look, so I left them. Next, I marked out the side of the helmet onto the dome piece. Then using a pair of pliers, I added a flange. Now I'm using the pointed hammer to add the texture and pitting to both sides of the dome piece. Then I welded all three pieces together. Now I'm moving on to the back flange of the helmet. After attaching the back flange, I then welded up all the seams of the helmet. Now to move on to the base of the mohawk. I used a pair of pliers and a hammer to fold the metal over to give it a more thicker look. Then I repeated the process to all the pieces that make up the mohawk base. Once that was done, then I welded all 4 pieces together. Now I'm attaching the mohawk base to the helmet. Now that the fabrication is done, I used a Dremel with the cutoff wheel and added the battle damage. Now I'm moving on to the final step, brass plating the helmet. I'm doing so with a handheld torch and a brass wire brush. I heat the metal until it turns blue, hot enough to melt the brass onto the steel, while I brush the brass across the surface. Now that the brass plating is done, the helmet is finished.